And so, but yeah, I don't get much spam because I handle mine as soon as it comes in. I handle it. I either spam it or I unsubscribe from it. So I don't get much. So I don't consider my email a real burden because there's only stuff that 90% of what I get is just what I subscribe to. And
Yeah. Well, I could be
so,
paranoid. I mean, I've only had one person say there's too much stuff comes in. So,
well, that's somebody that gets too much stuff in general, probably.
yeah, well, they were saying I was sending out too much stuff. But that's okay. I just took them off my list. So,
Okay.
yeah,
Well, getting back to what he said, I'm not sure. I'm not sure I get that. Uh, you you almost have to use metaphors. Um, just hammer, hammer, hammer. Direct experience. Direct experience is
yeah.
brutal and too much for some people.
Mm,
You have to lighten it up. People honestly can't take hard questioning as much as I can give it, to be
mm,
honest.
mm.
Uh,
Yeah, I always
and
thought using a story to explain something was a good way. What I'm now feeling is I just need to reinforce the idea that the story is concept about something, and that the idea is that what it points to is where they need to look, not get lost in the story itself. Yeah.
yeah, I think you do that. I hear you discount the metaphors enough to say, don't get stuck in the. I think you've said enough times, don't believe what you or I, for that matter, am saying. Look for yourself at what's being pointed to. So
Mm.
I don't know. Yeah, he has a very different. I could tell from talking to him a couple of times. He has a very different perspective. It's more to the point, and there's something to be said for that because there are some people that's more to the point is going to appeal to, and there are other people that it's not, and that metaphors and analogies are going to appeal to them more because that's just the way they're built. You
Mm.
know, I think if anybody ever found one actual method that worked every time, this would be all over with. The whole world would be enlightened and we'd be done. But
Yeah.
that's just not true. You have to find. That's why they say you have to find the teacher that fits you the best, just because of the way you're brought up.
Mm.
Um,
And isn't it amazing? We're all human, and yet there is such incredible differences between us.
Incredible differences. I'm always amazed at the stories of people's experience of either. Most of the time, it's like partial awakenings, and I
Mm.
saw it and then I lost it, or the shadow work that seems to pull up afterwards. That
Yeah.
seems to be a big thing, which is always an interesting experience looking at psychological processes from the view of someone who has seen there's no self anymore,
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
which makes it a unique
Yeah.
type of process. It's not like you read a self-help book and say, "Oh, I've got this self that needs help." Well, no.
Mm.
We took the self away. It's just the help that's left from no perspective. So it's I've heard some really unique stories about that, how people handle that because both things are there at once.
Oh,
So
yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Mm. How are you, Tammy?
Hey Vince. Um, yeah, it's interesting to hear you guys. And yeah, I think kindness and also coming at things different ways because when it's just hammered home, like I didn't hear the beginning of the conversation, but if I would guess sometimes hammering the same question, like if that question had worked, like who am I and whatever, I've read that stuff, you know what I'm saying? Like it didn't change things
yeah,
yet, which is why I come on the live stuff. Just like trying to, get it and sitting with that for hours and just getting frustrated. It's
Yeah.
something else that's sometimes needed. Um, and speaking about hammering stuff home, I've been doing homework on the hammering here, and you said to me to notice like what is actual physical reaction to the
Yep.
jackhammering and one is the emotional resistance. And it's taken me quite a few days because I noticed, I could kind of melt or merge or something, be in it or whatever, be it or whatever you want to call it. And then immediately mine would come up and say, no, get the hell out of here. Like, this is too loud. The craziness went on for a few days of being stuck in the middle and feeling I'm like in the hell of like being drawn on the one hand, wanting to fully surrender and use this as an experience of like, that's it, ultimate enlightenment, nothing bothers me anymore, I'm fully whatever. And being like, no, 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 take care of the human side. So that was a few days. And then today I was just sitting and again, like calling the authorities, calling the this, trying to find out stuff. And then just like it's after midnight and being like, um, they're starting again and not, they're allowed like 20 hours a day and they start even instead of 11 p.m., they start at 9 p.m. It's like, dude, we have 4 hours for dinner. Anyway, I did call the authorities. I did sit in it. And then I just opened all the windows and put on some music. And I was like, that's it. What can I do? And I was kind of sitting with it. And then I just kind of felt that the body, like the mind was okay. I was like, okay, I'll accept it. That's it. Whatever's happening. But the body is really, my ears, the tiny muscles inside of it are clenched. The body's clenched. It's really a physical reaction. Like, that's
Yeah.
what I was wondering all the years. Is it a psychological sensitivity or is it a physical as well sensitivity? And I think it is a physical sensitivity, which then sends the psychology into a panic. But there's definitely the body will not relax, and I wake up tense when there's noise, and I wake up more relaxed when there's no noise. So it's definitely a physical thing too that happens when I sleep as well, without thought processes, presumably. Or although knowing my brain, it probably thinks while I'm asleep. But no, um, so it seems that even during sleep it reacts to noises or not. And again, that could be a psychological thing, but it seems to me that it's yeah.
Okay, so I've got two questions for you. One, and one is the opposite of the other, or the inverse, if you like. Firstly, have you have you had the experience where you've noticed the the difference between the psychological and the physical? Have you noticed each independently, if you like? Is that might be a better way to put it?
So that was exactly my experience. Now, before I came on, I was like, I was in a happy mood. I opened all the windows, I put on headphones and I was dancing. And I was like, I've kind of like, okay, they're making noise. I can handle it. Whatever it is, I kind of accepted, like some kind of acceptance came in emotionally. And then I sat down and I realized that the body is being held tense, the muscles in the ears. In other words, yes, it was an experience of the physicality of the body was clenching involuntarily, even though I was in a great mood, had some sort of acceptance around it. So that was the first time, yes, which is why I'm like, okay, getting on to tell Vince. I finally had the experience of separating them. So
Excellent, excellent. Right, good value. Yeah. Now, my second question is the opposite of that, or rather, it seems to be a paradox, but it's not, or it is, but it's okay. And that is that, can you appreciate that there's no difference between the psychological and the physical, right? They are two separate processes, but they interact with each other. So when you get the physical thing, it stimulates the psychological thing, which adds to the physical thing, which stimulates the psychological further, which adds to the physical further, etc. And it's a never-ending cycle of interaction between the two. Can you get that as well?
So I guess today was the first time that it was very, very distinct and separate. In other words, I was in such a great mood, in acceptance of it, and still noticed the actual physical
Yes.
contraction and clenching and pain of it. And that the body was not calm, even though my spirit is and
Yes.
happy. And
Okay.
so it was an absolute separation. In general, my whole life is a total tizzy. I totally recognize I'll have a tiny stomach ache, and then there's an overreaction, an overwhelm in the system. You can call it psychological, you could call it the thought level, emotion level. Sure, this is my entire life is in a storm of this.
Right. So at this point, right, the next bit of homework for you is to appreciate that because you've recognized those two independent, seemingly independent processes, that now you can discard that. Don't even think about it, right? Because the psychological and the physical are so intertwined and dependent on each other that you can't really separate them. Right? So recognize that they are separate, but you're not going to separate them. Your experience is that you're not going to separate them, right? But also recognize that what you experienced being in that great mood had a huge difference on your overall, the overall effect it had on you. Do you get that?
I think the physical level was, I didn't expect it. I thought if I'm in a good mood, the physicality wouldn't be affected. But I noticed that there's extreme tension in the physicality, even when I'm in a good mood. The
Yes.
emotional upheaval and the adrenaline and all that wasn't there. There was still a joy, but
Yeah.
the actual contraction of the ears and the body was definitely there.
Okay.
But I can
Stop.
differentiate between the contraction and the adrenaline. It's two different things. This emotions are like, oh my God, this kind of thing.
Yes.
And
Yes.
it's distinct than the, yeah.
Yeah. Now, what I'm trying to say to you now, though, is that what you took to be just physical also included the psychological, even though it appeared to be just physical. So they are separate, but at the same time, the interconnection between them is so subtle that what you were taking to be just physical also still included some psychological, in spite of the fact that the overall psychological thing seemed to be separate and in a good mood, right? But that what I'm saying is that we can reduce the physical even more with practice, with the experience of what you call the psychological, the good mood that you were in, right? So if that good mood persists for a while, your physical is going to reduce incredibly, quite a lot, even to the point where it might even just turn off. So all I'm
Even in 100 decibel jackhammer, is that
yes,
possible?
yes, yes, absolutely, absolutely, it is. Yeah. So it's it's a scientific, biological, neuro something or other, neurobiological fact that the brain can totally turn off the input to any of the senses. It can. You can have I could put you in a hypnotic state and cut your finger off and you wouldn't feel it if in under the right circumstances. Right? So your body can turn off the input from any of the physical senses. Your brain can do that. It has the ability to do that. Right? So the fact that
But is
you're
that safe?
say again.
But is that safe for me to try and go into this place where I'm not listening to body's warning signals?
No, no, no. I'm not asking you to do anything. I'm asking you to appreciate the possibility that that can happen and that what your actual experience isn't isn't definitive separation between the physical and the psychological. That's just the way you experienced it, right? So you experienced that good psychological space, and yet at the same time you were aware of the physical, and it wasn't having an obvious impact on the psychological part. But I'm saying it still did have a very big interaction. Those two were together. So all I'm asking you to do is to appreciate is that the cycle that goes around physical, psychological, right, going around in a clockwise direction, that we can go in an anti-clockwise direction and undo a whole lot of that stuff. But although they seem to be separate to you, their interaction with each other is incredibly complex and subtle
Mm-hmm.
and big and little at the same time. You know what I mean? So all I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying is appreciate the fact that that good mood that you were in was a brilliant, absolutely brilliant experience, a brilliant start to getting better and better and better at this. So you can get to the point where that good mood will turn off the physical input to the point where, that jackhammering will only be there when you think about it. And while ever you're got your attention on, say, cooking a meal, right? You won't even be hearing the jackhammering, even though it's there. And then the thought will come, oh, I wonder if the jackhammer's still there. And as soon as you do that, you'll hear it again.
Two questions.
Yes.
One, A, wonderful, but two questions. One, again, the question of, is it safe to try and experiment with this stuff? Because I might be allowing myself to be in humanly, on the human level, dangerous experiences if I allow myself to be in loud noise or dangerous situations. Like,
Okay, I get it. I get it. Now stop. Your your body. Now, I mean, I'm talking about the physicality of your body, which of course includes your brain, will not allow you to get into a dangerous situation. Right? So
mhm,
if it's going to be hurting you physically, it'll let you know. Right? But that's a tricky one because the slightest story about how it's dangerous
mhm,
is
mhm,
going to heighten your senses. You're going to be hypersensitive to that, while ever you believe it's dangerous to you. So I asked you last week to just go and check with um, some expert about the actual physical potential for danger for health risk with the noise and so on. Did you manage to do that?
I didn't actually ask an expert. I kept on checking the decibels and then I ran it by ChatGPT and I've been measuring decibels now to get like baselines, but I should action that actual audiologist.
Well, that would I it doesn't matter whether it's an audiologist, but an expert. Now it depends on how much. I would ask Chat GPT rather than just Google for that.
Hmm.
What is and how you phrase the question is important. So I would be saying, what is the actual potential physical danger in terms of noise levels? Right. And what you'll find is that it's not nothing black and white. That's a graduated thing that goes from certain decibels up to, and the higher they are, the more likely there is to physical health. But I think you'll find that at 40 decibels, as much as it might be uncomfortable, it won't be causing any physical danger. Whereas when you get to say certainly when you get to say 80 or 90 decibels, it will be causing danger. But again, you'll have a tolerance for a period of time where it won't be causing danger, but it only starts to be dangerous after a certain consistency, which might be 10 minutes, it might be an hour, I don't know, something like that. So you're not looking for a black and white answer, but rather a much more attenuated uh, complex answer to where the danger is.
Hmm.
And of course, a lot of that will include how much rest period there is between those physical inputs. So if you've got noise cancelling headphones, for example, and you were to put them on for 20 minutes of every hour, you could probably take a whole lot of quite serious stuff and not have any physical problems from it, as much as it would be, the whole thing would be uncomfortable.
Hmm.
So anyway, so by removing the or making clear what the physical danger is, that allows you to give rest to the psychological stimulation, the hypersensitivity to it. And certainly over the period of time that you've been putting up with this, you have developed a hypersensitivity to it. So I'll bet you that your body gets a jolt the moment those jackhammers start, even before the noise level is intrusive. Just the fact that, oh, there they go again, would be enough to get things going for you.
A, agreed, and B, you're right. ChatGPT is very because it comes and goes, because it's whatever, and there are peaks that are over 100. So it's very, it's not clear because the sound is so, it comes and goes and stuff. But
Yeah,
I'll try and to look up some of the guidelines there as well. But
yeah,
and and my second question was, so you're saying, don't worry, my body won't let me be in that. But in other words, even if I calm down the system to the point that, as you say, I can cook and not even notice the sound, you're saying my body wouldn't let me do that if it was truly dangerous
absolutely. Yes,
for
for
my
sure.
hearing, even.
Yeah,
Okay. And the
yeah.
second question is, you said that if I'm happy and stuff, we can mitigate the physical stuff, but is it possible to be happy all the time? Like, is that something I can strive for? In other words, you know what I mean? To be like at peace or in a good mood and stuff. Is that something I could be most of the time?
Well, most of the time might be that, this is a good question. I mean, we we exist because of change, because of movement, because of fluctuation. So, like to say anything is going to be static one way all the time is just crazy. It's just not like that. Of course,
Mm-hmm.
our moods are going to be up and down and in and out all the time. They're going to be different. But overall, I mean, if I don't like saying these kind of things because it gives you a bit of a weird idea. But if I can't remember the last time I was in a bad mood. No, I can't. I can't find a time in my recent life when I was in a bad mood. It just seems like I wasn't. But maybe I wasn't. I don't remember it. I don't know. But so what I'm saying is, there's always going to be better and not so better, or
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
better and more better. I don't know. I don't know really, but yeah, no, I wouldn't look for any permanent anything. That's just not reality.
But would you say you're more like equanimous and serene, or is there also great joy?
Oh, also definitely great joy. No, and equanimity is not how I would describe my life in general. Now, my life in general is that Zen idea of wonderful calmness is not part of this experience. Well, it is part of this experience, but it's momentary, really. No, I'm always jumping up and down. Yeah. But equanimity in a sense of things coming in and having an effect on me, I'd say, oh God, I don't know. It does appear to be there a lot, like things don't knock me over like they used to once upon a time. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but at the same time, I don't know. I guess the whole range has shifted. Uh, Whereas before it used to go from -10 to +10. Now I'm inclined to think that most of the time I go probably from 3 to 10. So,
Mm-hmm.
and what I call 3 is a bit low these days, whereas once upon a time it was -10. Well, that was really low. Well, I don't experience that anymore. So, there is a range. So, yeah, don't.
Mm-hmm.
But the bottom line for you is the realistic expectations are that your moods will change. And so it's just a case of what they change from and to.
Mm-hmm. And uh, uh, just to clarify, like when you say we can go into hypnosis and cut off a finger and we won't notice, so that reinforces my thing of like, can I be hypnotizing my brain to accept things that would be dangerous? And you're saying I wouldn't, but then I'm like, but people can walk on fire coals and all this kind of stuff, yogic stuff,
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
will I then think I can jump out the window and fly and walk on coals and stuff? You know what I mean? That I'm like impervious to
Yeah, you're still not gonna hurt yourself. I mean, it's been a few years now, but I've done firewalking stuff, and you don't need a hypnotic state for that one. You just need the I was gonna say the word faith, but that's a little bit it's too can be misleading. So you just need to know that you can do it, and you can do it. Um, but once again, like even in a hypnotic state, cutting somebody's finger off, right,
Hmm.
it would be realistic to paint that picture of there being a good reason to do it before the person would allow the hypnotic state to exist. Right. So no, yeah, be careful about the word hypnosis. I used to do hypnotherapy once. That was a profession for a period in my life. And again, people have weird ideas about what hypnosis is. They think that they're not going to have control. Well, it's not true. It takes permission for that to happen. Um, and again, you're not going to do anything that's going to be dangerous to yourself, even in a hypnotic state. So to be able to cut a finger off in hypnosis and not feel it, the person whose finger it is would have to accept that there's a good reason for that to happen.
Hmm. Hmm. Like if they needed surgery or whatever, they'd be able to go through it without feeling, but they wouldn't do it for no reason.
That's right. Yeah, they wouldn't do it for that.
Hmm.
That's for sure. Yeah.
Like if a woman was giving birth or some stuff like that, you can kind of hypnotize the pain out of it, but not
Under certain circumstances, yes, you can. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
um
Just accept that what we're talking about is the ability of the brain. Now, here's a good example of that. I once put a stick in my right eye from the ride-on lawnmower that I was using, and I had to go to hospital to have this eye looked at. And when I got there, the ophthalmologist put this bright light in my eye, and as soon as they did that, I could see all the blood vessels in my eye. There's this cobweb of red blood vessels in my eye, and I was really astounded by this. And I said to him, "How come I can't see that all the time?" And he said, When you're a baby, your brain recognizes it's totally useless to see that, so it just switches it off.
hmm.
It is there all the time, and as soon as he shone that bright light in my eye, I could see it. But normally, your brain pays no attention to it whatsoever. It is there, but your brain just blocks it out. And so that's a classic example of the ability of the brain to turn off certain sensory inputs.
So even though people tell me that I'm hypersensitive and that like that I'm a highly sensitive person and that my stuff is too sensitive, you're saying no, that's just a state that's developed by my psychology, but it's not actually true that, like people that smell perfumes or I'm a musician, like people that have higher sensitivity to stuff, you think that's just a psychological construct rather than a physical one.
Well, yeah, again, once I want to emphasize, they're not separate, those things. But yes, that certainly people who are hypersensitive are conditioned to be that way, although some might be that way because of their DNA. Right? So it's not we can't have those as separate things. But if you're not and then you are, it would almost certainly be a learned condition. But don't try
Yeah, I think
to
I was
separate those
born that
things.
way. I
Yeah.
was very sensitive since I was little, I was told. In other words, but yeah.
Yeah, so we don't know. It may well be that even though you're born that way, that was something that you learned even in the womb. That's a possibility. But on the other
Mhm.
hand, it may be that your DNA is that way, but you can influence your DNA with your psychology. That's it. We have this thing called epigenetics. So it's like you have certain inclinations, but the ability to turn them off and on is the epigenetics aspect of it, and that can be the case. So, what we have with people who are hypersensitive to various things is that those genes get turned on more easily.
Mhm.
So again, we don't can't separate the two. The psychology and the physical there is really intertwined in such a way that they're not two separate things at all.
But like dogs can smell further than humans. So is that psychological? You know what I'm saying? Like, or
No.
can humans as well have a more sensitive nose, more sensitive ears, more sensitive touch? You know what I mean?
Well, you'll have that range that humans who are more sensitive and they can smell better, but the dog has something like I don't know the exact figure, but something like 400 times uh, the number of receptors that humans have for smell. So their ability to smell is not just psychological; it's the fact that they even breathe in a particular way so that they're constantly breathing in stuff to smell. Um, so that's the nature of the way the dog is built. That's different to humans.
Right. So I'm saying within humans, can we also have different natures of the way we're built, or you think it's all psychological?
Yeah, it is different, but there's a range, and the humans will never have the range that the dogs have. But yes, you'll get people who hardly smell anything at all to other people who are very sensitive to smells. So that range exists, and then you get any of those people, and that range can vary depending on their conditioning, the way they're trained.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So you're saying it's part and part. Part of it can be how we're built, and then it's affected by the psychology, because that's been a huge question of mine since forever. Like, is it all in my head, or is it actually physical about everything in my life?
Yeah, yeah.
But
And the answer is that it's neither and both.
meaning it's both, and they're just in a cycle of affecting each other, which you described at the
Absolutely.
beginning.
That is the best way to see it as I can put it. Yes. It's
Hmm.
both and they affect each other for sure. Yeah.
Hmm.
So
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 you're,
what you can do with that question now is put the whole thing aside, right? Because there's no definitive answer. It doesn't it's no more than entertaining to even consider that question now
hmm,
because there's no answer. There's no definitive answer to it. We would have to put you.
like there's no way to know,
That's
which
right. Yeah,
is
yeah,
nature and nurture and all that. Hmm.
yep. And we don't even have machines, in the most sophisticated machines there are, couldn't tell you the difference. Yeah. What there is what this whole waking up thing rests on is that there is this thing that we call reality, or what I call actuality, which is your current experiencing. And if we want to define that a bit closer, your current experiencing is also your interpretation of what you're experiencing. So it's not what it is that you're experiencing, it's not who it is that's experiencing, it is what experience itself is. And that's the only thing that is real for you, what it is you're experiencing. And the moment you try and describe it or define it, you're off into some storyland thing. So it's really, again, you can't go anywhere with it. You can't, all you can only experience it beyond the level of labels and description. But that's a little bit ahead of us at the moment, but we're moving in that direction.
Wait, so you had asked me to separate the physical reaction to the psychological emotional reaction. And now, is that still valuable to do?
Mm, not, not to do as much as what's much more valuable is to appreciate that exists, but the moment that that appreciation arrives, recognize that it's a theoretical existence, even though it's a physical existence. This gets tricky. It's it is physical, but then to appreciate that although they're separate, they interact with each other in such complexity and such subtlety that they can't really be separated in experience. Right? But yet you have experienced how can I put it? From an experiential level, you have experienced that they're separate, but what you
Mm-hmm.
experienced of them as separate isn't a clean two distinct separate things. It is just the fact that they are separate is what you've experienced, and then we can immediately move into how they interact with each other, right? And again, once again, that's just your experience, and so we can dismiss the story behind it that talks about them being separate or interacting, and then there is just your experiencing, and just your experiencing with those other things as a theoretical background or an actual background, um, enables you to access some of the subtlety of the interaction between those two.
Mm-hmm. And
Is that
also is the point also to notice, so you're saying the point is to notice the subtlety between the two, but is the point also to get me out of the intense craziness of the thought process and the psychological reaction to the thought?
absolutely? Yes, that's it. That's the whole thing. And that again is your experiencing. So once again, your experience is going to operate inside a range of different experiences. And if you can appreciate that, then the moment that your experience is A, and then the next minute your experience is B, then you have a memory of A compared to B, and you can appreciate that there is no one thing that is happening. What is happening is a whole variety of things. And you can, because you can appreciate the difference between them, you can move the whole range up or down, along that line, if you like, to a better experience.
So you're saying I have power over my experience and my levels of joy and fear and craziness?
Ask me that again. I missed the first part.
So you're saying that I have the power to shift my range of experience to a more joyful, less craziness at
Well,
will if I
yes,
start seeing more?
yeah. Yes and no. Okay, so yes, so what I wouldn't put it that way, but it is that might be a legitimate way to look at it for a moment. Yes, you have the power to do that, but you don't have the power to control the power. That's going to just happen to you. And so what I'm asking you to do is to appreciate the the happenings. Forget about the ability to do it, and just recognize that it will happen. Right? So there'll be that experience of more or less, or up or down, or whatever. So let's say at the moment we've got a -10 to +10, and um, your range at the moment is -10 to, say, +2, right? So that business where you had and you experienced joy, and you were able to uh, operate in that state yesterday, and but at the same time you were noticing the physical, right? So you're up at +2, right? But the worst case, when you're pulling your hair out, you're down at -10, right? So that range from -10 to +2, let's move it up the scale. So we go from, say, -8 to +4, right?
How?
Well, not by doing it, by
Mhm.
noticing what is actually happening for you in greater detail, by getting closer to your experience, what is actually going on in your experience. Now, here's a little trick. What that will entail will be you paying less attention to what your mind is saying and more attention to what your body is saying. Now, eventually, I'm wanting this whole scale to move up to say from from 2 to 10, right? And we'll just eliminate the minus scale altogether, part of it, right? But not by doing it. It's not a case of having the power of and controlling it. It's the case that the body has the power of it, but not the mind. Right? So you
The
can't.
body.
Yeah, you can't. What I'm trying to say is that willpower is not going to work. Willpower doesn't do this. So you don't have control. Right? But by noticing it, your experience will change.
By noticing how my body, by keep on doing what you said this week, noticing the body's reaction without the stories and the mind coming in and the
Yeah.
adrenaline and all that.
Right. And so consequently, what will happen there is that the psychological amplification of the physical won't happen, or it'll happen less,
Hmm.
simply by noticing what's going on in the body. Now, it sounds like that's a job to do, notice what's going on in the body. But there's also a subtlety in that will happen not because you decide it's a job to be done or it's homework to do, but rather it'll happen because you notice that it's happening.
Okay. And you also said something before. You said this is a bit advanced for where we are, but you said something about experiencing or something. Is that something that I should hear again?
Experiencing? What did I say?
Something about there's something about not a, I don't know,
Yeah.
an experiencer, an experience, experiencing, something like this. I'm not sure exactly. I didn't catch all of it, but it's okay.
Yeah. It'll come back. It'll come back as and when it's more relevant as well. I don't remember what it was that I said. Um,
I will also ask, my father was diagnosed with stuff and he just did a scan and like stuff has grown and stuff. And he's gonna have to start medicate. Like my route through stuff is to try and solve it and eat differently and move differently. And his route is to just take medication and more medication. And he's deteriorating. I don't know. His voice isn't the same. His mind isn't the same. Like it's not noticeable to most people, but a little bit. It's noticeable. And I don't know what's going to be with this medication and stuff. It could have horrible effects. Anyway, I'm a huge internal turmoils, fears for him, for myself, etc. Anything to work on or notice this week.
mm, yeah, that's a hard one, isn't it? Um, again, so one of the really big things that we're doing with you and your situation could also apply to your situation involving him. And that is that you are starting to appreciate, you've had the experience of appreciating the the amplification effect of the mind on the physical. Right?
Yes.
Your experience with him is probably a bit more a better example than the situation you're in at home, where you can see that almost all of your experience towards your father's situation is your mind, right? There's no direct physical link to his situation and your situation. It's all going to be story. 100% is story in terms of your connection with him. I mean, of course, there's the genetic thing, but that's got nothing to do with your reaction to his illness and your stories about where his illness might go to with his medication or with any other modality that you might introduce. That's all story. 100%. Would you agree with that?
Um, I guess it's like I'm worried about watching him suffer.
Yes. So you're
And
saying you're worried about, right? That's your mental stories about the situation. Do you get that? I'm not trying to
no, I understand. I understand. You're trying to explore with me what is actual and what is in my story.
yes.
I He has told me his stress.
Yeah.
Um, so then is it a story or not? When I see expressions on his face, when I hear his voice change after the
Absolutely it is.
operation,
Yes.
um,
And they may be good stories. Let's not imagine that stories have no relativity to what is actual. But again, when you see what you interpret as pain or what you interpret as discomfort or suffering or whatever it is you interpret, it still is a mental connection. And if that gives rise to your physical experience. Right. So
so
when,
even if he tells me he's suffering,
that's right. Even if he tells you, he's telling you a story. He might be describing that story. Might be a good description of his physical condition or his physical experience, right? But you're hearing that, and that story being transmitted by sound is going into your brain, and then your brain is producing your suffering from that tr-
agreed.
trans.
Um, Two questions on that. One about empathy, and B, there is some physical stuff because his emotional support of me and his financial help are both strong effects in my life.
Yes.
They change my physical reality and what I'm able to do.
Yeah, but they only change it via the story level. Even
Mm,
even the physicality of the financial support, right,
mhm,
changes your circumstances, and you react to that. You have a relationship with that changes your experience. But it's your relationship to it is not a physical connection. It's not like you're getting an electric shock from that, or relief of electric shocks. It
but if circumstances change, isn't that a physicality that's changing?
no. Again, it's your relationship to those circumstances that you're reacting with. It's not the actual circumstances.
Mhm,
This is a classic one with the noise level.
mhm,
It's not the actual circumstances that you're reacting to. It's your resistance to those circumstances that gives you the
mhm,
experience that you're having. And so one story to overlay to describe what we're aiming for is for that resistance to be removed, and no longer experiencing the resistance means that your actual experience is going to be quite different and a lot better,
mhm,
because that resistance is entirely responsible for the suffering component in this whole situation. And it's the same thing with your father's condition. The resistance you have to his condition is where the suffering comes from, not from his condition directly, but from your resistance to it, from your not wanting it to be there.
yeah. Not wanting my stuff to change, not wanting him to suffer, not wanting to,
Absolutely.
yeah.
And that's all perfectly reasonable, right? So we and we also have these things called mirror neurons in our brain, and so we get this what you might call empathy or compassion that comes where you recognize that he's suffering and you immediately feel suffering too. Well, that's still not that's still the story level that is the connection, but it's real, and we're not gonna lose it completely, but we can we can change the some characteristic of it. So this gets a bit
Mm.
tricky as well. But there is, let's say, use an example that there is sadness and there is grief. And if you look at them, you'll see that grief is sadness plus stories,
Mm.
right? And and if you've got grief, that's a pretty horrible experience. But if you remove the stories and you've just got sadness, and this is something I've experienced, it's really weird that that sadness can have a really, I won't say pleasant, but a beautiful sweetness to it that can exist in just pure sadness. So
But isn't sadness from a story as well? In other words, why would you be sad if you had no story?
that's right. Yes, it is. So all right. So what you get though is you minus the psychological amplification of the gross stories that were there when it was grief. And so what we're talking about, we're not talking about black and white anymore. We're not talking about the absence of story. We're talking
Mm-hmm.
about the quality, the characteristics of the story. Right. So what I'm saying is I feel compassion for people who are suffering, for example. But that compassion now, even if it takes me to the level of tears and crying, um, it's not something I push away. It's something, it has a beauty to it that I can't really describe, except I recognize it in my experience. So what I'm saying is that it's the suffering component doesn't need to be there, yet there will still be the other. And so we're still recognizing that stories are the involvement of, but they happen. It's not like we can stop those stories. We can't.
Mm-hmm.
If I could stop them, that would be bypassing. That would be believing a lie, if you like. So
Mm-hmm.
we're not ever saying that witnessing your father's um, witnessing your father in his declining health situation, it's never going to be pleasant, but we can remove the suffering component of that experience. Now we can't do it by willpower. All I'm saying is recognize the possibility, even if it's a fantasy possibility at this stage for you. But because that will allow it to exist.
Yeah, I'm starting to feel it because I went into intense despair today after he spoke to me, and then I was like, this is not helping any. I don't know, something I was able to just stop
Yes,
that
we're
spiral.
able to put that into a better perspective. That's right. Yeah, good, good. Yeah, excellent. So these experiences that you're having, right? They're the things I want you to notice, because they're changing the possibilities into probabilities. Right? So that the fact that you notice that you're you had a certain attitude and that a slight shift in perspective changed your whole experience of that.
Yeah.
Those are incredibly valuable moments of recognition. If we
Mm-hmm.
highlight them, that's where what will take us into changing your whole experience of what's actually going on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so realizing the effect of story on experience is valuable along the path or whatever.
Absolutely, it is absolutely, yeah.
Okay. And I have to remember not to be too hard on myself because when I have these moments of being able to like dance while there's a jackhammer or like stop a spiral with my father, I then expect myself to live up to it in every moment and then I start berating myself again. But yeah.
Yes, absolutely, yeah. You get it, you get it, yeah. So watching your experience in closer detail than you ever have before is where we're moving to, and that will change your overall experience quite a lot.
And by watching in detail, you don't mean like resting my body and going into some altered state where I'm in some Zen deep thing or just some weird drugged out state. You mean just a simple noticing as I go about my day.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And but also recognize that simple noticing is not simple noticing. Simple noticing is incredibly powerful. That
Yeah.
that will change your whole experience more than you can even possibly imagine until it happens. And then you'll go, wow, that was pretty something. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I see these things. I really hope that it's not just a fluke and that it'll actually continue and that everything we're talking about can actually transpire for me. So thank you so so much. I truly
Uh,
truly appreciate.
and recognize that these things are always fluctuating up and down, in and out, around and
Mhm.
around, that there is no constant anything, that we'll always have more or less. And even that's
Mhm.
a gross simplification. Yeah.
But just trying to shift it to a bit higher.
Not trying to, just recognizing that it will happen.
Okay.
Yes, anything that you imagine that you can achieve by trying is a delusion.
Hmm.
Yet
So
these
just to
things
keep
will happen. Yeah.
so just to keep noticing the difference between the physical experience and the story and how they affect each other and just keep being aware of that this week.
Yeah, yeah, but not don't put a lot of effort into it. Just
Okay.
recognize that that's something that can happen. So
Okay.
even though we're not making a big deal of it, a whole lot of these kind of things happen where it's every time you have an experience, it changes you. And so what we want to do is we want to amplify the noticing of the good experiences so that it changes us in a certain direction. And that's what will be happening.
So
So you
keep
don't have to
noticing.
do anything. Just kick back and enjoy the ride is what I'm saying in one way. And all of these things that we've spoken about will either appear or not appear. They're seeds that we've cast out and some will germinate. That's the whole point. And the ones that germinate, great. And the ones that don't, well, we'll cast some more seeds out next time we talk. And eventually
Perfect.
it'll happen for you. Yeah. And it is happening. Your experience that you've mentioned to me today is brilliant. I love it. And that is certainly something that will be built on. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome.
Even since no one's talking, can I talk about
You're
something that's like not super related to? Sorry, what did you say?
Oh, that was a terrible connection, Vicky. I missed everything that you said. It just broke up.
Really? Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can now. Yeah, I can hear you and see you now. That's good. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so I mean, I have something that's like the kid could be very spiritual, but it's not necessarily non-dual. So I just want to like pass it with you guys, if that's okay, because I don't have.
Yeah, no, fine. Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so like I have a history of like limerence. I'm not sure if you guys know what that is. You probably do, but like when you're obsessing over a guy. and like I've had that before, and it was over this Indian dude. For some reason, I'm really attracted to Indian people. So like today, I saw like a really attractive Indian dude, and then I just like I thought like, oh, should I just go say hi or whatever? And then I was thinking, okay, if it's according to non-duality, then like if I'm going to say hi, I will be saying hi. If I'm not going to say hi, I will not be saying hi. And so I didn't say hi. But then because I feel like at the moment in my journey with mental health and stuff, like I'm not supposed to like go into a relationship because I don't think it will be good for my mental health. So so I did not say hi, and then I remembered that my therapist, like my past therapist, said like she stayed single for like 9 years and she's spiritual, and after 9 years, like she saw the back of the head of her like now fiance, and then she kind of just recognized that, oh, that's her soulmate, and then she just like they just had that they just began having a relationship and whatnot. And so for me, I think like for now I should just like not like think about guys too much and not regret over like not saying hi to like an attractive guy. And I should just focus on my mental health and stuff like that. But yeah, and why I brought this up and why it's spiritual is just because like today I just watched a video from Ramana Maharshi, Ramana Maharshi, and he said that the whole world is a projection of your mind. So whether I'll have like how many friends I'll have, whether I'll have friends, whether I have a boyfriend, whether I'll have a husband, I think it's all a projection of the mind. So when it comes to just like loneliness and like finding a partner and stuff, like do you agree with me on that?
Hmm. I didn't quite get the question. What are you wondering if I agree about?
I'm wondering if you agree that like um if you're like vibrationally at a certain level, then everything that like so like just that the world itself is a projection of my spiritual level, I guess, like my vibration. And so like if I vibrate at a high frequency, then everything I want is going to come to me. But if I like don't work on myself enough, then like I'm not going to get those things, and even if I get them, I'll lose them. So like
Yeah.
would you say that like that's an accurate worldview?
Uh, there's a bit too much story in there for me to say I would agree with that, but
Mm,
essentially I do. Like I can see quite easily and quite clearly how the way I interpret any input to my senses
mm,
is going to be via the way I see the world. It's going to be as a result
mm,
of my conditioning, as a result of my DNA times my conditioning, right? So my view of the world, my interpretation of the world is definitely going to flavor what I see. It's going to be according to that interpretation for sure. Right. So
mm,
certainly, from that perspective, you could include your vibrational level. But I don't know about this thing called vibrational level. I get it theoretically, but I don't know about it at a physical level. I don't know about it at an actual level. Um, but certainly, if for example, football doesn't interest me, right?
mm,
And I have a certain attitude towards football. So if I meet somebody and they just want to talk about football, I'm not particularly interested. You know,
mm,
so I will put it this way: I wouldn't be particularly interested in an ongoing relationship with them as a result of that. And so, in
mm,
a sense, you could describe that as the vibrational level. So my vibrational level doesn't include football, and if theirs does, then obviously we're not that compatible. But,
mm.
but on the other hand, I know people who like football and they're good friends, but we never talk about football.
Mm,
So, there's variations on this. You can't kind of say it's either there or it's not there. It's kind of there at some level. Um,
um,
so in a sense, that the way we project, so you can say for you to interpret anything in any way, you have to that filter that you're using to interpret things is there because of your experience in life.
mm,
And so consequently, it is a version of you that you're seeing in other people and other things because it's through that filter that is you. So in other words, that from that perspective, that's a clear a, c- a clear physical description as I see it to the way we project what we project onto the world. Our interpretation is what we project, if you like, more than anything else. And so, yes, the whole world and everybody in the world that you have a relationship with of any kind, however trivial, is going to be a version of you. So, yes,
mm,
the world is a projection in that sense. Um,
mm,
so, of course, you're going to be attracted to people for a variety of reasons. And now, when you uh, see them and it's your hormones that are speaking, so to speak. This is our story. Um, then uh, it's if it's your hormones from a distance, chances are that the possibility of them being wrong about compatibility can be pretty high. But you know that already your filters are saying, oh, that's something that I like, right? Get close to them and you notice different things, right? So one of the things that will affect you that you don't realize is affecting you is smell, right? So you smell them. Now for me, a big turn off is to smell scent, artificial stuff. It's like it masks what's real. So
mm,
that kind of thing. But also you'll notice facial expressions and you'll notice the way they talk and you'll notice the sound of their voice and you'll notice the hairs in their nostrils or coming out of their ears or things like that. All sorts of things you'll see from close up that will either attract or repel you or whatever version of that is going on. So, yeah. So I wouldn't overlay a story about at this stage because of I will or I won't. You just go with whatever turns up in your life. And it maybe a relationship will be a thing and maybe it won't. And maybe a relationship will turn out to be a 3-day relationship, or maybe it'll be a 3 years or a 3-decade relationship. Who knows? Yeah. These are things we don't control. They just happen.
yeah. Yeah, honestly, I used to worry about the future a lot, but ever since I read a quote from um this one saint, he's like the grandfather saint of some saints, and like he said don't worry about the future, don't have any anxiety. So, and I'm just like, okay, I'm gonna adopt that. So even though like every day like I have so many things I can worry about, I just choose not to anymore. And like finding a partner is one of them, so that's why I kind of brought it up. Um but regarding my spiritual practice though, um I don't know whether I should meditate or not. I do appreciate you giving the recommendation for me to stop meditating, or I mean not that you said that. It's just like it's okay for me to not meditate if I don't want to meditate. But yeah, it's just like I think the one thing I'd like to pass along with you to check if it's right is is that, so I think from the previous, I mean recent videos I've watched on um Saint Ramana Maharshi and this other saint, I forgot what their name was. but they're both saying and implying that, oh yeah, like Nisargadatta, the Saint Nisargadatta, like they both Ramana Maharshi and Nisargadatta say that you need to use I am or who am I to stop your thoughts from focusing on anything else but the self. So for example, like if I had a random thought, I would say who am I, and then focus it back to myself. Or if I had a random thought, I would say I am to focus it back on myself. So is this the right way to use self inquiry, do you think? Like just using it as like an attention grasping, and I mean using it to control your attention so that your attention always falls on yourself instead of on outward objects in your worlds, like to make it like more like interior, I guess. Like does that all make sense?
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. Yeah. Yeah. So look, there's a couple of things come to mind. One of them is appreciate that, particularly Ramana Maharshi, but including Nisargadatta, they're from a different time to now and a different place in the world, right? So I would say almost everybody that Maharshi saw was probably Indian. Good chance,
Mm,
from that part of the world. I mean, sure, there were others turned up as well, but that a different time, a different place, and things have changed a little bit. When we read the Buddhist scriptures, it's important to appreciate that that came from a different time in the world to today and different circumstances. Back then, there were very few householder monks or people that were looking for enlightenment as a householder. They generally did something like they retired from life and went off into the forest and studied this kind of stuff. Well, we don't do that anymore,
mm,
right? Now we do it as a householder in a family situation. Um,
mm,
so things have changed in a big way. But if we lined up all of the sages and all of the people that were famous, you'll find they that one of them will say, a whole lot of them will say, oh, meditation's the way to do it. The others will say, focus on I am. And the others will say, who am I? And all various things that they'll do. What they're all doing, what's common through them all, is recognizing what is actual,
mm,
or really recognizing what is not actual. Right? Because the way I would put it in today's language is that a whole lot of people in society, take what is conceptual and relate to it as if it were actual.
mm,
That's how I would put it. And so what we're doing with this awakening stuff is we're learning that concept is concept, and what is actual, the only thing that is actual, is your interpretation of your current experience. And
mm,
even as actual as that is, it's still an interpretation.
mm,
Now, once you get that, all of a sudden, a whole lot of the stories just disappear out of the world.
mm,
It's the idea that so much of what is a concept is taken to be real. And what we do is we take verbs and we turn them into nouns, or we take abstract nouns and call them concrete nouns. Like, how much of the world believes there is such a thing as responsibility? How much of the world believes that they have control of what goes on in their life, in spite of the fact that it's really, really obvious that they have got no control? Yet the bulk of the world believes that they have got control. The bulk of the world believes that they've got a self running the show. Well, you can already see that that's just a joke, isn't it? That's a concept, that's self, and they take it to be real. And that's the thing that's common through all of the sages, no matter what they say to do or not do, it's just a way to discover that.
Mm.
So I say to you again, it doesn't matter whether you meditate or not. But the big thing for you at this stage is remove the conflict about it. It's not right or wrong.
Mm.
It's not good or bad. It's just meditating. And if meditating happens, great. If it doesn't happen, great. Makes no difference. Will it lead you to awakening? It's going to be part of it, whether you're doing it or not doing it. I used to meditate a lot when I was a seeker. I used to go to Vipassana and spend 10 days in silence meditating regularly.
Mm.
And since I woke up, I've meditated 3 times, I think, in 15 years. Not because it's bad, just because I couldn't be bothered. I don't, yeah.
Mm.
So that's not the way it is going to be for everybody. Everybody's different. I still see meditation as a good thing. I just never get around to doing it.
So Vince, can I ask you another question?
Yeah, of course.
Sorry, I have a lot of questions. But so basically, recently, I saw Angelo's video about how, um, a sign that you're going to be awakened soon is when you go totally into despair, totally like in desperation, totally like just thinking that you're never gonna get this, you're never gonna like get awakened, like you're giving up on it, and there's nothing for you to do, and then to be awakened, and then after that, for some reason, people just get awakened. So I want to ask, I'm thinking this probably happened to you sometimes on your journey, and it might have happened multiple times. This has, because it's already starting to happen to me. So I'm just wondering, like why does this phenomenon occur? Is it because like there's a lot of resistance and a lot of stories? Like how many times, how can I know, like how can I like make the amount of like the desperation stuff, like, or like, okay, how can I just bunch it all up into one desperation episode and just like and just like be desperate for like one time, and then I can get awakened to the other side, like in like quick, clean, and like fast. Like so, like
Yeah.
I mean, I know I don't have control over anything, but like I wouldn't, I would hate for myself to be desperate for like a lot of times over the next like decades, you know what I'm saying? So that would be really bad. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I get it. Yeah. Well, welcome to this journey. That's the I asked the same thing for again and again and again over 40 years of that I did. So, yeah, I don't wish 40 years of seeking on you, but whatever is going to be is going to be. Whatever is. You can't. Yeah. So I I'm laughing quite hysterically here that you're saying, I know I can't control things, but if I can just control things for a moment, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is what it is, Vicky. You've got no control over what it is, and it is the way it is, and you are the way you are, and that there's just God, just enjoy it. That's all I can say. Enjoy what you've got now, and you'll be there.
And
That's it.
now what?
You'll be there. You'll be there. You'll
Oh,
be
okay.
wherever you want to,
Okay.
whatever you want to call it. You'll be enlightened the moment you stop looking, and not because you stop looking. Don't get this one wrong. So again, this is something I was talking to Paul about earlier. It's easy to say, if I say to you, people who are awakened have stopped seeking, and you interpret that as, oh, if I stop seeking, I'll be awakened. That's not the case. That's not it, because you can't control whether you seek or not. Right? So you don't awaken because you stop seeking. When people are awakened, stopping seeking stops. It's not they don't do it, it's just not there anymore because they're awake. And so you can't, so you've got to be careful that you don't kind of twist the story around in the opposite direction, because it is just a story. And some people, this is something that I've recently written a story about, and I've recently, we spoke about it with somebody on one of these groups, but that somebody who had stopped seeking was enjoying freedom, clarity, whatever you want to call it, that they were enjoying, and then went back to their family home and immediately started seeking again. Right? That happened. That happens. Yeah. Doesn't mean they're awake. See, that doesn't mean they're not awake. Just because they were in clarity, that was their current experience. Would we label that as awake? Well, we might, but doesn't mean it is. It's just a description. So there is no right or wrong. There is no this or that. They're all just stories. But I say to you, if some magic could happen, if I could give you the magic pill, which one, the blue pill or the red pill? I don't know, one of them. If I could give you that pill and all of a sudden you were laid back and relaxed about whatever's turning up, we could probably call that awake until it wasn't. But, I don't have any pills like that. I'm sorry.
I'm not gonna lie, Vince. I think the what I'm taking away from this right now is like just enjoy life. Like just be present. Like you don't need to have a lot of money to enjoy life. You don't need to go on trips every weekend to enjoy life. Like literally, there was one time I was practicing this from Eckhart Tolle, and I was just like cutting the lemons and marinating them with honey, like in a very present, focused way, and that was like so enjoyable. Like there was just like this vibe to it that is something I never usually get. So and also like watched a video from one YouTuber called something, I forgot his name, but like he got into awakening by like he became awakened by being present, and then he shot down into no self-realization like really quick, like really quick within some span of time. So I think like for me, I'm just gonna practice being present because I've gotten some signs on it too. So yeah, but thank you. What you have been saying so far kind of just led me to thinking this. So yeah.
Okay. Well, don't do it. Just notice it.
Okay. Okay, got it. Thank you. Hey Vince, I thought of something. I thought of something that has been troubling. Sorry, I would just like to fill up the space with some talking. Even though it's probably not necessary, but but it is something that has been troubling me a little bit. So, yeah, can I talk about it?
Of course, don't ask permission, just do it. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so basically, like, I have an ex, like an ex-boyfriend. He's like, his dad is like almost a billionaire. He has a house in the Hamptons, whatever, whatever. And Upper East Side, yeah, but stuff like that. And the thing is, like, I lived with them for a while, and they were just like so chill, funny. Just like my boyfriend basically had no flaws. He's just like a really hard working guy. He would work like he finished Stanford in like 2.5 years, so he's like really intelligent, really focused, and he's really like open to anything. He was really open to anything that I asked him to do, and just like I feel like they as a family and like just being with him, you there's so much joy. There's so much joy that's there, and like just comparatively like with my family and just like with my conditions, like every day right now is just so boring. I have nothing to do. I have like friends, but I'm kind of like a bit like socially anxious, I guess. So I don't like ask them out. I mean I could, but like I don't want to like rely on them either. But I don't know. It's just like life is just less joyous, and so but then it makes me like feel bad to compare myself to him because I feel like there's just less joy in my life. But then I think like, oh, like I've gone through all this awakening stuff. Like I haven't gone through Ken show yet, but I've gotten like my own glimpses of spirituality, and like I've had bliss happen to me, I've had peace happen to me, I had love happen to me. Like this is like so big that like and so like cool that like I feel like it like in some way like it it balances out the fact that like his life is so good and my life is shitty, but like hey, I got awakened a little bit, so guess what, like that makes me like that makes me worthy, right? But I don't know, so like what do you think about that? Because like I get so much shame recently and a lot of comparisons with others, and I don't know, it's just hard to stop doing it, you know? So yeah.
Mm. Yeah, comparison's a bitch. Um, yeah,
Mhm.
we. I mean, we're to say apples and oranges and bananas are all fruit is might be true, but you can't compare them, can you?
Yeah.
And people are the same. We're all a different fruit, even every one of us. You know, we're different. We're all people, but we're all different. So how can you compare? Um, so any comparison is just overlaying a really weird story on things, and then if we react to that, it's even weirder, isn't it? But yet that's what does happen.
Mm. It's weird because like I don't even hate him. Like I genuinely think he was a really good ex. But like sometimes like things got kind of weird after we broke up too, and so I don't know, it's just like yeah, it's just weird. The stories are weird, you know, like the stories and the comparison, and like even though I know I shouldn't do it, like it's still done. And yeah, but thank you for saying that because I still do not understand why comparison is like why you cannot compare it to people, because like in my mind people are not that different. But yeah, but I'll figure it out one day, I guess. Unless you can give me a few pointers on it. So
Mm.
yeah.
Okay, so in your mind, everybody's a different version of an apple. One, they're Granny Smiths, or their whatever the different names of the different apple versions are. They're all apples, but they're still different versions, aren't they? you know.
Yeah.
So maybe the difference isn't that great, but nevertheless, they are different. And when you get into details, the more detail you get into, the more differences there are.
Oh.
Yeah. But like all of this stuff, if comparison happens, then it happens. But the moment it happens and you recognise that it's a ridiculous story, you just dismiss it. You don't get involved in it.
Mhm.
So again, you can't control what happens. But you can recognise what it actually is when it happens.
Mm. Okay. I'm gonna talk with my mom about this a bit more, just because like I feel like everyone around me has better insight on this than I do. So, but yeah, your thank you for saying that, because yeah, like I'm starting to get a little bit like all the intricacies. Like people say it's just like a wave, but I mean like what, like there's all these intricacies, and I guess like at the end of the day, like it can't be compared. But if you just look at it surface level, though, it's just like so easy to do that. So yeah. But anyway, thank you so much.
Yeah, yeah. I think you underestimate yourself a lot, Vicky. You see things in details that many people don't. So don't put yourself down the way things are. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Vince, and thank you, Paul, for being here. I'm gonna go now.
Okay. See you later.
Bye.
Yeah, I think I'll head off too, Paul. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little night.
Yeah.
It's
Thank you.
really is a big holiday in this country, and people
Yeah. Yeah.
usually bang it out all weekend.
Yeah. For sure. Yeah. Well, that might explain it, but good. All right. Have a good one.
You too.